Welcome to episode 5 of Lost in Translation. As always, it is Bobby Martin, and I am Sam Perkins. We're coming to you from the WCTV studios in Wilmington, Massachusetts. Bobby, how are you doing today?
Doing well, Sam. Great to be back as always.
Yeah, a lot going on in the basketball world. You've been watching the playoffs at all?
I am a Philadelphia 76ers fan, so and not to say that I don't like the Celtics. I'm just saying that Philly is it's the team I grew up with, and they are out of the playoffs, so I haven't paid much attention.
Do you when you were playing, you're competing throughout the year when you're overseas, did you still watch American hoops while you were over there, or you're kind of locked in on your season and what else is going on in the world is what it is?
Didn't watch American hoops that much, mainly because it was on late at night or early in the morning our time. You know, this might be 2 in the morning, and at 2 in the morning you're probably sleeping. So no, you paid much more attention to what was going on in your league because you probably had to play that team in a couple of weeks.
Gotcha. What about since retiring? Do you watch hoops now these days, or?
I just subscribed 2 days ago when the Celtics won. I think it was 2 days ago.
Yeah.
That was the first NBA game I've watched in its entirety all year. Just haven't done it. Try to keep the girls away from a lot of television.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed the game. You know, it was a really good game, and NBA playoffs are what it's all about. You know.
Yeah, it's interesting. With you're talking about, is this the changing of the guard? I was talking with someone the other day about it. You know, these Golden State teams. Not that Steph Curry is old, but he's been around for a while. He's he's probably entering the second half of his career, back nine of his career. You got LeBron James is, I think, 37. You know, you keep wondering, is someone going to fully supplant him as the best American player in the world, or even just the best player in the world, period, from anywhere? And it seems like that keeps not quite happening. I don't know if that's more of a testament to how just freakishly incredible he is, which he is, or the generation of guys that were supposed to be taking over now not quite being able to fully grasp it or fully live up to the hype. Not that they're not incredible in their own right, but...
LeBron is box office. He always has been. He continues to be. And I don't see anybody supplanting him. They're trying. Okay, is it KD? Is it, is it Steph? They're looking for the next guy, and I understand it. It's a business.
Yeah.
But LeBron James, oh my goodness.
I still remember when he was coming out of high school. I never thought, and I mean, granted, I was, I'm only a year older than him, I think, so we're around the same age. So I was, high school at the same time, freshman year in college. But the hype around him was so incredible. Most athletes in any sport just can never live up to that kind of hype, You look at some of the all-time greats in their respective sports, and the hype wasn't, like Tom Brady, there was no hype coming out of college. Jerry Rice is probably the greatest wide receiver. Not probably. He is the greatest wide receiver of all time. Anyone who says otherwise, anyone who says Randy Moss doesn't know what they're talking about. But no hype around Jerry Rice coming out. He was like a 1AA player. Even Michael Jordan, when he came out, he wasn't the number 1 overall pick. People thought he was a great player, but I don't think people thought he was going to be the greatest of all time. He was going to be the one to take on that mantle. So,
right.
That kind of pressure and hype can be really tough on players. So it's with looking at what LeBron has done in his career, I think he still to this day doesn't get enough credit from people when you look at,
Who else has received that type of hype? I mean, Kareem?
And lived up to it.
Right.
So, it's... I don't know. I don't think anybody has received that kind of hype, and in my lifetime, at least,
I mean, I think Kareem probably got that.
Yeah.
Look, he changed the game.
Yeah. Wilt, too, before him. Wilt
exactly.
probably had that.
So you've got
in
Wilt,
his era, that kind of hype. And
Kareem, Jordan didn't get the hype, but LeBron did. So those three guys are absolutely, I mean, if you're talking about the Mount Rushmore of hype,
it
was those three guys. 2 of them have lived up to it, and LeBron so far has. So
I mean, to me, personally, my 3 all-time greatest players in any particular order, I don't know, is Jordan, Wilt, and LeBron. So I think people, Wilt Chamberlain, as far as changing the game and as far as, I understand people are like, well, the era is better today. I totally get that, but you can only control the era that you play in. And the reason the era exists today is because it's evolved, and it really started with Wilt. And Wilt's a guy that just he's probably the greatest, most freakish natural athlete to ever play the game of basketball. When you think he played in the era before weightlifting, he played in the era before specialization and year round, and the dude at the height of his career was 7'1", and that was when they were measured barefoot, so he was today is 7'2", 7'3". He was 300 pounds, and he could dunk from the free throw line with such ease that they had to make a rule because of Wilt that you were not allowed to dunk your free throws because it was so. They were like, he's just going to do dunk. Can you imagine a guy who goes to the free throw line as much as Wilt Chamberlain in a game getting hacked, and was able to just dunk with such ease from the free throw line that they're like, we got to put this rule in place or else he's going to be dunking 30 free throws a game.
I saw a video, and I'm pretty sure it's still up on YouTube, of Bill Russell taking the ball coast to coast, jumping from the foul line and basically jumping over his defender. Incredible
I've
video.
seen that, and there's a video out there of Wilt blocking a shot where this much of his arm is above the top of the square.
Right.
Wilt Chamberlain was just such a physical freak. He was probably the greatest volleyball player ever, too, which people don't realize. He ran like a 4.5 40, which is just at that size. It's just stupid. And Arnold Schwarzenegger's told stories about how Wilt is the strongest person that he has ever encountered in his life, and it's just that he's a guy that literally he's probably the only one you could have taken him from his era and transported him today, and he could have been a superstar in the game today. So you can only imagine with his natural size and ability if he had grown up in the era today and had the advantages of nutrition and strength training and all that sort of stuff.
He would probably be a better version of Shaq.
Oh, yeah. It was... That, speaking of Shaq, I had a conversation the night. People need to stop. The new generation needs to stop with these shock value takes of, they're a great player. I'm talking about, LeBron's one of my 3 greatest of all time. But, with this guy today could shut down this guy of yesterday. People were saying, Draymond Green could shut down prime Charles Barkley. Get out of here. Or the most ridiculous one I've heard is people said that Draymond could defend Shaq, or that Rudy Gobert could shut down prime Shaq. Are you kidding me? This was an honest-to-goodness thing that I've seen on Twitter, which I guess maybe Rudy Gobert is the one behind it, just tweeting off nonsense. But Rudy Gobert could shut down prime Shaq. Have people not watched a video of prime Shaq?
No, I don't even entertain those conversations. No, could Wilt do what he did today? Could he do today what he did back then? Absolutely. Could Jordan do today what he did when he played? Absolutely. It was a different era. I've had the fortune of growing up in Atlantic City, which is very close to Philadelphia. So, according to Sonny Hill, the guru of Philadelphia basketball, Wilt Chamberlain, who he always shared stories with us about, is the best player ever to play. So I'm going to stick with Wilt.
That was my dad's guy, was Wilt. And, my dad wasn't really alive for LeBron, but he was alive for Jordan. He played with Dr. J, my dad, so, and he said Wilt was the guy. So, and I watch old videos, and it's incredible what Wilt could do back then. Wearing the Chuck Taylors that he's playing in, dead floorboards.
Can you imagine the endorsements he would get?
Oh my goodness! But that to me, when I saw someone saying that Rudy Gobert could shut down prime Shaq, and it's like prime Shaq in his prime was 7'1", 330 pounds. Doesn't matter he didn't shoot threes like today. The guy was such a freakish athlete and so insanely strong at his size. And I've seen him running the fast break, at that size and crossing over and just, one step inside the free throw line and just dunking on 5 guys. And it's you look at the guys Shaq went up against that couldn't stop him. Dikembe Mutombo couldn't stop him. Dikembe was an incredible defender. Patrick Ewing couldn't stop him. David Robinson couldn't stop him. The only guy that could play Shaq as an equal and slow him down was Hakeem during his era.
Right.
And that's a top 5, 6 greatest player of all time, Olajuwon, top 10 certainly.
Yeah.
And he couldn't stop him. He could slow him down a bit. So it's like the notion that, I don't know.
Dude, it's you're looking at Shaq coming at you on a fast break. It gives a new meaning to the phrase, the light at the end of the tunnel. That's a train coming.
The train coming right at you.
That's a train.
So I've always wondered, and I've always, I've picked around a little bit and kind of poked you a little bit, but who are some of the best players that you ever played against?
So, I was fortunate because let's see, Dennis Rodman, but if I have to go into my memory bank, I am going to say that the best players I've ever played against have probably never played in the NBA.
Huh.
You've got so many guys out there who are really, really good players. Now, I mean, if you look at it on the other side of the equation, I didn't play in the NBA.
Yeah.
So, there's an argument there. But as far as guys I've had the chance to play with and against, I think I've spoken before about Sabonis.
Yeah.
There's another guy named Tanaka Beard, who was an unbelievable player. Dejan Bodiroga, who I had a chance to play with in Spain. Oscar Schmidt, the Brazilian sensation. He could shoot that ball, man.
He's the highest. He's got the, I think, Olympic record for career points and the international record for career points in international play.
Probably.
I think I read that. I mean, I know that he's viewed as one of the greatest to ever never play in the basketball players who have never played in the NBA. And I know he had some opportunities. I mean, what sort of player could he have been is tough to say, but certainly if he had come out in today's era where there's more of an emphasis on 3-point shooting, could have been, I think, some. But I think that he's a guy that certainly could have at least been on an NBA roster, a rotational guy if he had wanted to. What I've heard is he always never really wanted to leave Brazil.
Why? He was living like a king in Brazil.
Yeah, and that's where he's from, Yeah. We talked about Sabonis on our first episode, and just you find these old videos of him. There's a few out there before injury and just destroying David Robinson when they were both, early 20s, college age in the Olympics, and just, at his size and strength and skill ability, but was an athlete back then.
Who comes to mind? Charles Smith.
Yeah, yep.
Charles Smith from Connecticut. He was a senior when I was a freshman at Pitt.
Okay.
He is one of the most unbelievable. He had one of the most unbelievable packages I've ever seen.
Yep.
Charlie could shoot. He could handle. I believe he gave himself the moniker Mr. Fluid. Yeah. And it was well deserved. He was. Charlie was really, really good. I thought he was better than Danny Manning.
Wow. Did you ever encounter overseas Marko Milic? Not to be confused with Darko Milicic, but Marko Milic, who was the Slovenian incredible dunker, played in the EuroLeague as a 17-year-old. Jumped over a car over there and played with the Suns for 2 years, but he just.
I did get a chance to play against Marko Milic.
Yeah.
He could jump.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing I've heard about. I wouldn't put him up there as far as players, but just freak athletes.
Man, you know how many of those guys there are.
Yeah.
There was one guy named Tony Harris that I played with in the CBA. He actually had a couple of stints with the Celtics. Unbelievable athlete. You've got Chandler Thompson that went to Ball State. Unbelievable. Willie Glass from Atlantic City, my hometown, was at St. John's. These were the type guys where you just got out of the way. It was going to be a highlight. Yeah. And I've been fortunate, man. I've seen a lot of guys.
I remember we had a conversation ages ago, I think, that someone that actually, I think everybody, was a laughing stock for a while because I've heard he just never was passionate about the game, but someone who actually had a lot of talent was Greg Ostertag. I think you played against at one point.
I don't remember Ostertag that well. He was. I think he was a Kansas guy.
Yeah, he was a Kansas guy.
He was a Kansas guy. I'm not remembering Ostertag that well.
Yeah, I remember there were some moments where he'd just do something that's 7'2", and it would be like, what, like, whoa, where did that come from? And Roy Williams talked about, if you could have taken the heart of this guy Jarrett Hass on their team and put it in Greg Ostertag, you would have had a, all decade type player at the NBA level, an all time great. But
that I do remember. As far as people questioning Greg's desire to play.
Yeah.
I think that's probably why I didn't.
Yeah.
I can't remember him too much because the guys that I was playing against were monsters,
Yeah.
man. I mean, Ken Bannister was one of the guys who was, with the Knicks back in the day. Just a lot of tough dudes. I got a chance to meet Buck Williams, a guy I loved watching growing up. Got a chance to meet Moses Malone. I mean, those were the guys that I was looking at.
Have you seen? So we're talking about real hoopers, and then everybody kind of wants to be a hooper, but no, you've seen about J. Cole, the rapper, singer, who now his second professional contract, I'm saying in quotes, that he has signed. Last year he played with a new league that started in Africa, played a couple of games, garbage time. Then now he's signed with the Canadian kind of semi-pro summer league. It's not the top league in Canada, but it's the second time, and they're already like, oh well, he's not going to be able to play most of the season because of his touring schedule. What do you think about something like that, or when you have these teams will sign people kind of for gimmicks? Just it's completely a gimmick. He's not good enough to play at that level on his own right, at any sort of professional level. I mean, he didn't even play in college, but. When teams will sign someone like that just for ticket sales and stuff and to try and move the needle, what do you think about when, as someone that you dedicated your life to the craft, when something like that happens?
Okay, so I'm going to look at both sides of this.
Yeah.
One, I started off by saying that the best players that I've ever competed against probably haven't made the NBA for one reason or another. So maybe he's got game. But from what I'm seeing right now, you've played 3 games with a total of 5 points.
Yeah,
at your position. I'm guessing he's a guard. I don't
that's
know.
what I think is what he's listed at.
Okay, so I was always told stick to your strength area. All right, if you've been to a Baptist church, all right, or you've been to a church where they have a good choir, and the congregation is singing. I remember, shout out to Greater Holy Trinity Baptist Church in Atlantic City, New Jersey. On Sunday mornings, the congregation would be singing, and there was one woman, all right, who sang so loudly that she drowned out the whole church, and she was off key, all right? So, moral behind the story, stick to your strengths, all right? I'm not walking, look, I can't sing like J. Cole. I believe that I can carry a tune, all right? But I'm not walking out there in front of 30,000 people and starting to sing. That is not my strength area. So J. Cole, you can probably, give that spot to some young man or, who's trying to make himself, or earn himself a good professional career.
Yeah, to me, it's like, I get it on the one hand that these teams in these like startup leagues or low-level leagues are just trying to sell tickets and move the needle. And I think that he does that to a degree, but at the same time, it's like you're not a hooper. And I know that he's a solid rec league hooper, that people like him, that in high school, I read some articles that he got cut his first 2 years. His junior year, he makes a team. Senior year, he's kind of sometimes starter, sometimes off the bench. He wrote this whole piece in his personal...
And this is where? What level?
High school, somewhere in North Carolina.
Okay.
And then he wrote this whole piece that, he went to St. John's for college. He thought about walking on. He went to walk out and tryouts. The coaches there seemed to think that he was cut. His recollection is that he didn't go to the final day of tryouts, so he never found out whether he would have. But this wasn't a kid that was like a scholarship level player, an invited walk-on level player. And people don't understand there's levels to hoops that, like, even if he had made a Division I team, which he didn't as a walk-on, the difference between being a walk-on and a starter at a Division I level, and then between being just a Division I starter and a pro somewhere it's so drastically different that everybody thinks that because they hoop in their local rec league that they're like, oh man, I could have made it if things felt differently, and it's most people that's not the case.
The issue with being tall is I always get people come up to me and say, oh, if I had your height, I would have done this, I would have done that. And I tell them, if you were my height, you would have got these hands.
Yeah.
Right. You would have got the same elbows I'm giving out.
If they were your height, they probably wouldn't have been able to walk and chew gum at the same time. I mean, that's the way that it's easy for someone, easier for someone my height to be coordinated at 5. My new driver's license says 5'9", so that's what we're going to go with. My wife thought that was ridiculous, but I'm saying I'm 5'9". It's to me it's funny, but it is someone's, it's a roster spot that someone else that maybe has a chance of going somewhere in ball could be occupying, and I get it. That's a calculated risk or a calculated decision that these teams are making of, we feel like this 13th man on the roster is more valuable to sell tickets because of the hype and the name associated than to have someone be sitting on the end of the bench. So.
Yeah.
I get that. It's financial. It's these teams need to make money, and it's not easy to make money when you're some of these lower levels. Something I wanted to talk to you about getting more serious is, a word that you had talked to me a while ago, and it's kind of, I think it's your career and something that really encapsulates what you're doing now with Hoopers, with all kinds of people from all walks of life, is resiliency. Maybe you can talk to me about that word and why that's so important to you.
So there are definitely synonyms that go along with resiliency. What I'm trying to do right now is blend the phrase "ball is life" with basketball, if that's actually what we're going to go with. The ball is life hype. Well, how so? I've thought about this, and I want to go with rebounding. Rebounding would be a synonym for resiliency, the ability to bounce back, all right, the ability to generate another opportunity for yourself. So I think resiliency is defined as the ability to bounce back and return to form. Rebounding, according to Merriam-Webster, is the ability to, I believe, to react to a stimulus. All right, something along those lines. So they're all about reaction. They didn't say what type of reaction, of course, but they did mention reaction. Now, if you're talking about being resilient, then bouncing back to original form is never enough. When you bounce back, you have to bounce back better.
Yeah.
So it's about redefining what resiliency is. What I'm watching now as I go through this AAU world in the summers, I see kids emotionally distraught because things aren't going their way. Now, it's a coach's job to get on the referees, and I actually found myself doing it this past weekend because he's just making horrible decisions, and the referee was out of shape, so there was no way in the world he was going to be, in position for the play, which is a pet peeve of mine. I'm like, look, if you're going to ref, get in position, run the floor. If the player's got to run, you have to run. So whoever the governing body is, make sure your referees are in shape, please. The kids are trying to get scholarships. And to the referees, do your job. But, the kids, when they don't agree with something, right, a bad call by a referee or a coach not playing them as much as they desire, the kids have horrible attitudes, man. And I keep telling them, your attitude is going to determine your altitude in this thing. The coaches that are looking at you want to see what's your ability to rebound from a poor experience, something that you're not accustomed to. And I'm just not seeing that from these young men. They're ill-prepared to handle the difficulties that basketball is going to present.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that. And I think that was something that I had to learn in life, too, where I was pretty good as an athlete, as a kid, of using when I felt like I was slighted to motivate myself.
Mm-hmm.
To work harder, feeling like, oh, I got screwed over here, from this. But I did not. It took me a while to become moderately decent at accepting feedback, I think. And I think that's a skill that I wish I had been better at as an athlete. And it's a skill that, like, I really wish a lot of young players were better at, is taking feedback and using it to try and grow, instead of, we all think when we're young and headstrong that, like, we know everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, really, you're a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid, you know more than Bobby, who has, 4 decades in this game.
Right.
like, really?
Right.
You had almost 20 years, almost 2 decades playing professionally at, like, the highest levels, and the 16-year-old kid's going to know better than you.
Yeah. I'm not blaming the kids because, just because you're older doesn't mean you grow.
Yeah.
So, there are a lot of us that make the same mistakes as adults that, that we did when we were children. So the kids understand what they see. As far as they understand, let me keep it there. They understand what they see, but their perspective is so limited that they're unable to look beyond their own perceptions, okay? Rebounding isn't defined, it's not defined as a skill. Everybody says, oh, it's effort, it's effort, it's effort. I disagree. I've listened to Charles Barkley. I thought one of his definitions for rebounding was hilarious, and he says, just go get the damn ball, right? And yes, there's a strong component in just go getting the ball. But when you listen to Rodman talk about rebounding, he's, okay, well, you have to know your shooters. What's the environment? Is his shot flat? What's going on? What position do I have to be in to have a chance at this? So that's an acquired skill, because if you get it wrong, you don't have a chance to rebound. There is no second chance. So, if we're talking both sides of the ball, because you've got offensive rebounding and you've got defensive rebounding, right? Okay, offensively, I need to give myself another chance, all right? How many games have been lost because you don't defensive rebound the basketball? The coaches are always harping on it. Rebound the ball, yet it's not a statistic. It's one of the statistics that they're doing away with.
Yeah.
There's no need to go to the offensive rebound. Really? Box out. Well, dude. On the teams that I've played on, because I was a rebounder, I considered rebounding personal, all right? For the team, it represented security. I would get it, right? I'd grab the rebound, I'd make sure I had the ball, and it gave us a chance to start again, to begin again. And what are we going through today? We see all these things, the horrible things that have gone on for the last couple of years now, right? Starting with COVID and now into these mass shootings, right? So what do you see people doing? They have to learn how to rebound. If they don't, then they fall victim to, whatever energy is controlling them that day. How do you rebound from that? I commend the parents who are working at rebounding.
Are there moments in your career that stand out to you as moments that you rebounded from, that were big moments that for defining you in your resiliency, your ability to bounce back at any level? It could be as a player, it could be as a coach, as a human being.
There are plenty of moments. These moments happen every day. I mean, this could be me not wanting to get up and go to practice.
Yeah,
I got to rebound from that. Look, just because you're feeling bad doesn't mean you don't have to go to work and do your job.
Yeah.
There are moments when emotionally I'm distraught about something that has nothing to do with basketball. Or I'm distraught about basketball and it has very little to do with life. So how do you rebound and keep those two separate? Growth is intentional. You grow as a rebounder, you grow as a person. You've got to secure the ball to have a chance to win the game. So, there's not one specific moment. I would say that transitioning, speaking of rebounding, it allows for transition. But when I'm transitioning from one moment to the other, whether it be as a player or transitioning from player to non-player, it's important that I grab the ball so I can, again, have a chance to win that part of the game.
What do you how do you explain it to young kids that maybe don't want to listen right now, or that are just struggling? You know, they're young, you know, and it's, you said you can't hold it against them. It's you're young. You think you know everything about the world before you've really seen it. You might have had coaches, parents, whoever in your ear that hadn't themselves experienced the basketball world, that think, oh, you know, this kid's got some talent, he's going to be an NBA player, when they don't really have any perspective on how many great players there are, millions in the country that never make it anywhere. You know, but so they may have given these kids the wrong impression about the world, how it works. How do you talk to kids about resiliency, about their ability to rebound from these things? Like how do you approach kids about it?
Well, the biggest issue I think for all of us, and especially young kids, is how to handle the emotional disappointment. It's not easy. I think what you do is you allow them to feel what they're feeling. What I do is I explain to them, look, now that you understand where you are, all right, how you feel about this, what is your next move? How are you going to come back from this? Well, if you're going to come back, you're going to have to keep the downtime to a minimum. You know, how long will you let this affect you? And that's tough for them. But I've seen them fight back. I'm expecting the rough moments. I'm not expecting too many of them once they understand. But, you know, I challenge them to look first to understand, then to be understood. Because we have a tendency to want to talk and let out our frustrations. But you say you're depending on this coach to help you. Let him try to help you. Leave room for, I may not know. That's usually what I do with the kids. And, you know, I've got an advantage, though, because I've been where they want to be.
Yep.
So, you know, if it's a high school kid, I'm saying, all right, well, we got to start from, the fact that you're not a McDonald's All-American.
Yep.
Okay? If you're a top 20, we can start having a conversation. If you're not a top 20, then be quiet. And it's an ego shot, all right? And it's intentional. But they get it.
I love that you're actually giving players instructions on like next steps, next things to do. I hate it when coaches just say a bunch of nothing and hope for it to work its way out. Like I will never forget a coach that I once worked with where, like, you know, this is on the other side of the ball. Not even going to waste time talking about some of the worst coaches that I played for, but you know that I was coaching under a coach, and he used to, like, the kids, if someone was struggling with something or they had booted a ball or whatever, but hey, figure it out. Be like, figure it out. It's a high school kid. If he was able to just figure it out, he wouldn't be doing it. Like, give him some actual. I had a great. Hey, figure it out.
I'm with you. I'm with you, Sam.
Like, figure it out.
Yeah.
But you know, one of the quotes that I hate, because it does absolutely nothing to help a situation, and it usually compounds a problem when someone's struggling. You know, and I've noticed myself having to not do this with my son early on in his life and be aware, because when I got into teaching, a supervisor of mine kind of told this to me, that like when kids are struggling, like don't ever say calm down to someone. Because and in the entirety of someone having a hard time in a situation, how often do you say, hey, calm down, and they just calm down? Like almost never. It usually exacerbates it. Because it's like if they knew how to just internally calm down, they would. So usually, like, give them a skill. Tell a kid, hey, breathe. Give them positive reinforcement. Hey, you've got this. Hey, give them something to do. Do X, Y, and Z. But just saying, like, I always hate when people are like, hey, calm down. You know, like, calm down. If I knew how to calm down, I would calm down right now.
Yeah. This past weekend in a game, I'm listening to the kid, one of our kids, and he's going after the ref. All right. And normally, when that happens, it's because the kid himself has made a mistake. Right? And it's tough. You know, they're vulnerable at that moment.
Yeah.
So, you know, they don't want to be embarrassed anymore. So I waited until the timeout, and I was thinking about saying something to the kid. I said, no, you know what, this isn't the right time, because emotions were too high.
Yeah.
So I waited until after the game, and we ended up losing the game. But I said, look, if you can't emotionally compose yourself, right, in the heat of a game, then I'm not playing you. It's that simple. get it right. What I wanted to do was I wanted to acknowledge his feelings. I get it, man, but sometimes you got to tell the kid no. No is no.
Yeah.
And he got it. And you know what he did? He ended up playing his best game. The following game was his best game.
Yep.
And I said, I said, so welcome back. Welcome back. And there was a big smile on his face. And, he learned his own lesson. And we just look, here are the rules.
That's, it's one, that's a great kind of story there. And two, and I think it's so important that you were able to talk him through it. You were stern. You were able to give him expectations and feedback, but not in a screaming, barking, rip the kid's head off sort of way. Because the kids, if he's already struggling, most kids, if then their coach is screaming at him, they're just gonna spiral more. They're not gonna kind of regulate themselves. One of the things I used to always talk to my kids about, and I wouldn't get mad, but when I was, and obviously I don't have the panache that you do as a coach, but and I needed it in my own right. As a player, it was funny because I was always a very fiery player in a bunch of sports. And then when I got to college, I transitioned. They turned me into a catcher my freshman year of college. I was always a middle infielder, center fielder. And I got turned into a catcher. And you start to see the game in a different way, and you start to interact with officials in a different way because they're right behind you every pitch. And you get to know them better, talk to them better. And to change my perspective across a lot of sports. And I would always talk to kids because I would, at the high school level, you have kids showing up, umpires showing up, referees that don't like a call, staring them down, chirping at them, and I would always pull kids aside and say, hey, have you ever seen a player show up a referee in front of, or an umpire in front of everyone? Let everybody in the field, the stadium, the arena, the gym know you think he's doing a bad job, and that official starts calling a game differently in your favor. No, they're not going to respond well to a teenager showing them up and go, you know what? Actually, yeah, I better call the game better, and I'm going to be more fair to this kid. No, they're gonna stick it to you more, and that's one of those things that kids don't get. But that you show up an official, you're not helping your team win in that situation. It's one of the things that drives me crazy about, especially youth league, middle school, even high school coaches. When they just get on refs and ride them and scream at them. It's one thing to have conversations with refs or to hey, you're doing, but these showy, flamboyant displays of yeah, I think you're messing up, I'm just going to scream at you all game. You think you helping your team by doing that? Is that are they going to call things better in your team's favor, or is it just more important to you to make this whole show at the expense of helping your team win a game?
So when I see this, I take into consideration that, and I tell all the parents this, basketball is an individual sport where you give yourself to a team dynamic. All right? You still have to be the best version of you in order to help the team. All right? Now, in fairness to the referees, they have probably, especially in youth sports, they've probably reffed 3 games in a row. You may be their 4th game. And they're not earning that much. No. They are ready to get out of the gym because the organizers are saying we have to be out of here by such and such a time. So, when the kids act up, I agree with you. They are not helping themselves, but it does give me a chance to see who the kid is.
Oh, yeah. It's very telling, I think. And kids don't realize that college coaches, because let's face it, even at the level you're coaching, which is some elite AAU playing against some of the better best teams in the region, country, most of those kids, even at that level, even above that level in the EYBL, the Nike League, most of those kids at that level are not going to end up being college superstars, let alone NBA players after college. Even the best high school players, 99% of that top 1% of high school players, 99% of that top 1% are not going to end up in the NBA. So it's even when you're that good, relatively, you're still not the best of the best of the best of the best. So what are you really doing by engaging in these antics, showing up referees? And coaches look at that stuff. People don't realize it, that it's part of the total package. They want to go. Coaches want to win. That's their prime motivation. Once you get to the college level where this is your job and you're making big money out of it, You know, we talk about these noble things like, you know, helping kids become adults and helping them mature and all sorts of stuff. But at the end of the day, the first priority for coaches is staying employed and keeping that paycheck coming. And the way they do that is by winning games. And they're going to look at who is going to help me win games the most. And it's, we need talent. But also, like, if a kid's a head case and is getting into it with referees all the time, that could come back to bite us at some point, you know? And then that's why, like I said, I've harped on it a bunch, but, you know, these coaches at this high school level that are just getting into it with referees, like, on the weekends, like, you're instilling in your players that this is the way to behave if you're a hooper, and it's like, this is not helping them in the long run.
So, again, it goes back to rebounding. It goes back to resiliency. You know, how are you going to help your team? Do you give yourself an extra possession?
Yeah.
A chance. You know, I was never one to talk to the referees. I may run past them and give them a whisper, but one of the things I did was, you know, when the game was changing, I always loved playing a physical game, right? And you know, guys would start flopping, and you know, I would get an offensive foul. So what I started doing was, before games, I would shake the ref's hand, and I'd almost crush it. You know, I'd watch them wince, and I'd gently tell them, look, don't punish me for being stronger than these guys, okay? Give me a chance here. And they respected that.
And there's an art to it. There's an art form, and that's right there is you can state your case without trying to embarrass a referee out there. And there's a difference, and kids don't get that. And it's, I always notice that like, you can state your case of, look, I am bigger and stronger than these guys, or look, you can schmooze them, you can smooth talk them, you can be the Terminator that just emotionless on the court. People have different styles, but once you are making public displays of letting everybody know, hey, I think this ref sucks, you are putting yourself above the team, because that never helps your team win. You know, like, it's not like, hey, they're like, hey, if we can embarrass this ref enough, I think he'll be so embarrassed that he's going to start calling things in our favor. No,
they're human beings. They don't want to be put on blast.
No.
You know, again, I'm still angry with myself for what I did this weekend. You know, one of our kids clearly got fouled at the end on a three-point shot. I mean, it was clear. The kid just ran him over, and this was like 1 second left. The ref didn't call the foul, and I'm livid. Because at that point, I'm like, okay, you're costing the kids, you know, extend the game, because that's what you should do at this point. I'm looking around for the ref, and the ref is on the other side of the gym walking away, so I knew something was up there. So I made sure he heard me, you know, because I wanted the kids to know, look, you guys did enough. You should have had a chance to play this out. And but on the other hand, you know, I got angry with myself, because I'm like, all right, look, I'm taking this a little bit too seriously. I have to show more composure here. But at least the kids know now that that I'm with them. It's rough, man. I get it from the player and coach standpoint, and I'm still working on this myself.
Do you remember the resiliency or what it took to bounce back from, we talked a little bit about when you didn't hear your name called on draft night, or when you've been in the CBA a couple go-rounds and you realize it's just not, it's not in the cards, it's not in the cosmos to make the NBA. Do you remember back then?
Absolutely, I absolutely remember back then. My grandmother's favorite poem was by Langston Hughes. It was called Mother to Son. And basically, you know, part of the poem goes, you know, so don't you sit down on them steps, because you find it's kind of hard. I still reaching, I still climbing. And life for me ain't been no crystal stair. And my grandmother loved that poem. Now, you know, only that was part of it, but I understood that this wasn't it. There is going to be disappointment. I think that what she was trying to do was, and what Langston Hughes was trying to do was, while we are trained to win, we should also be preparing how to handle losses, because in life we'll experience many more losses than we will wins. So there was a wonderful book written, you know, sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. And that's what I try to teach my children in any of the youth that I'm involved with, you've got two choices. But once you become clear, once you have clarity, then there is no choice. What are you willing to do? Ask yourself the question. When do you get good answers when you ask good questions, right? But once you ask great questions, those make a difference. So, what questions do we help them ask themselves?
Well, once again, thank you everyone for joining us for episode 5 of Lost in Translation. Bobby, it has been a pleasure. For our audience, we're going to start having some pretty cool guests rolling in here over the next couple weeks, the coming weeks, and we hope you will continue to join us for this ride.